Okay, the purpose of this screencast is to give you kind of an overview of the political problems that plagued ancient Rome in its final centuries. And the problems are kind of numerous, but I'm going to try to break it down here to kind of show you the connection between how problems in politics spill over and relate to other problems within the empire that you've already had some exposure to in this lab. The most obvious answer to Rome's political problems is they had a sort of degradation in their political leadership. Poor leaders managed to rise to the top, and this is a little bit of a chicken and the egg sort of thing. One could argue poor leaders create a bad government, and that kind of trickles down and seeps into everything else. Or you could say that bad government was kind of recruiting poor leaders. It's obviously a little bit of both, and there's a relationship between the two, but it's pretty clear from historians that there was a decline in the competence and ability of Roman emperors in the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, and that decline in competence led to kind of a breakdown in the political system that maybe was already happening to some degree. So poor leadership is another thing. But in terms of systemic problems, the Roman government had a lot of issues going back to the time of Augustus and Julius Caesar, which is that money could buy influence in politics. Essentially, if you were wealthy enough, you could buy access to the political system, whether serving in the Senate, but more importantly, you could serve in the military. And wealthy individuals who decided to serve in the military as generals could distinguish themselves on the battlefield and thus gain the loyalty of their soldiers. And this may not sound like a problem, but it becomes a problem when generals who are successful on the battlefield have loyalty of their soldiers, and they use that to kind of gain control of the political system. So a successful general who has a lot of spoils of war and has captured a lot of material goods can pay their soldiers and essentially buy that loyalty forever. And anyone with an army needs to be listened to in politics. So there are frequent fights for political power. A lot of times there's a reluctance to let political solutions and electoral solutions play out, and there's a temptation just to resort to civil war, to violent score settling between angry, bitter political rivalries. And civil wars are bad for a number of reasons, but one thing that is most obvious is it's Romans fighting Romans. So if you're worried about possible invaders on the frontier or internal economic problems, civil war is almost always going to make it worse by weakening the society. And finally, what this ultimately leads to, the kind of spillover effect, is that talented people, people of high merit and ability, will choose not to serve in the government due to the dangers of losing their life. So what you get in the later parts of the Roman Empire, in the late 300s and 400s CE, is that talented people stay out of government, they don't rise in the political leadership, and you get kind of what has been classified as a brain drain, where talent doesn't go into government and you get a high level of incompetence in bureaucracies and administration, and that lends itself to corruption and really kind of affects every aspect of life at that point. So these are some big ideas for how the Roman political system failed to function after a period of time.